Hello guys, I'm Super Ron. Welcome back to the channel and we're back at Auto Shack, and this week we have got this absolutely stunning C5 RS6. And today we're going to do the job of all jobs on it. The engine is coming out. So as many of you know, I myself have got a C5 RS6 in the Daytona Grey. I never knew they did them in the Nagaro Blue, but this one looks absolutely stunning. It's actually very local to us and he's had lots of work done elsewhere, which has caused problems. So it has been coming to us here and there to rectify all those faults. The biggest job it had done elsewhere was a new gearbox in it. As you probably know, these C5 RS6's Achilles heel is the gearbox. With the enormous torque from the V8 twin turbo and the heavy car on four-wheel drive, there's no wheel spin, no slip. The only thing to give is the gearbox in the middle. So it went away, had a new gearbox fitted, and that's when the big problems started. When they put it all back together, they didn't really remember where any of the plugs went, so anything that fitted just got plugged in. The lambda sensors were plugged on the wrong side, so the fueling was trying to correct the wrong side bank, so it was running really rough. It had misfires. All the plugs in the middle under the intake plenum were all plugged in the wrong side, so like the carbon canister was plugged into the boost solenoid and everything just was not working properly. So I think they got a bit overwhelmed with the job and just needed to get it back together. So we've been going through, rectifying all them faults, and now it does run and drive really nicely. The unfortunate side effect of having a completely standard one myself highlights how much nicer this one is to drive than mine. It's got a few mods, it's got a remap, it's got a full Miltech exhaust system, it's had all the suspension arms done on the top and bottom on the front, so it drives absolutely spot on. The gearbox is so nice and tight. With the new torque converter, it takes up drive instantly, changes gears really nice and crisply, and because it's got a remap as well, it absolutely flies. So as we've been working through the problems that the gearbox people created, we are now fully up and running and fault code free, all except for one airflow problem. And that comes from when you start out from cold, we have got a blowing exhaust manifold. Not usually a big deal on the car. Take the exhaust manifold off, new gasket in, put it back together, and you are ready to go. Not on an RS6. So the only way to get to the exhaust manifold bolts is to take the engine out. You have to take the exhaust manifolds off to get the bell housing off, so we have to drop the engine and gearbox all out together because the exhaust manifolds swoop round and with the turbos they cover the bell housing. So I'm not sure what they've done, whether they've not tightened them up properly, whether they reused the old gaskets, but that is what we're going to find out today, and we are dropping the engine out of this RS6. And while we're there, we're going to do a full service, we're going to do the cam belts, we're going to do the cam chains, everything that isn't accessible when it's in the car as it's out, we are going to do. The rocker cover's also leaking, so all these jobs can be done out of the car a lot easier than in the car. I just hope we don't find too many more problems. So let's see if I can show you the ticking noise of the blowing manifolds. So I don't know if you're going to be able to hear it, but that ticking noise is a blowing manifold. So let's get this on the ramp and have a look underneath. And here is underneath the beast. So we've got twin turbos, so we've got twin intercoolers, one each side. We've got silicon upgrades. The turbos are right up there, which is why we've got to get the engine out, because we can't get to the manifolds at all. We did put sports cats in it before because it had no cats at all, which was throwing up warning lights because of the landers. And it's got the full Miltech exhaust and the vented diff at the back. So now let's start stripping. We've got our Elsa Win ready to go. So let's follow the procedure. So this is going to be my Bible for this job. I'm going to follow it step by step. As much as I'd like to make the claim to know absolutely everything about everything, we all do need a guide. So as many of my colleagues will know, you've just got to follow your screen. So what I'm going to use for all the information I need today is Elsa Win. This is basically the main dealer software for when all these came out. And this is where I get all my wiring diagrams from. But today we want workshop repair guides. So we'll go Audi 2003, A6 V8 Avant, BCY engine code, GAG gearbox code, and then we're going to want power unit. 8 cylinders, 4.2, 5 valve turbo. Yes, please. Engine assembly. Yes, please. Removing and installing engine. So this is the main dealer software, and it tells you every single specialist tool you need with all the correct VAG part numbers, every lift, every adapter, every tool you'll need, and it tells you step by step how to remove it. So remove engine, under trays, and it shows you every single bolt, every single clip, every single plug you need to take out, and it's all very detailed, specific to the RS6. So it's not just a generic file, these are full RS6 specific. So as we go through, it'll tell you all the pipes, all the clips, everything is labelled. So I'm going to be following this all the way through, because then I can follow the install procedure as well. And that will give me every single bolt size, every single measurement, where bolts go, lengths of bolts, what bolts go in what hole, how everything goes together, and all the torque settings for absolutely everything. And people are always asking where I get these from, because it's also where I get all my wiring diagrams from. When I do all the wiring episodes on the conversions and I have all those printouts, it's all from Elsewin as well. And I got this years and years ago, but I've been in contact with the people at Emanuel Online, and now they can offer a service of providing these along with all the data sheets, all the wiring diagrams, everything you need for your car. They sent me the document for the RS6, and it's 16,000 pages long in one big download, so you can use the search bar and find what you want. Or what I do is I use Elsewin, and then you have them all in one place and you can just go through. But I'll put a link down in the description to Emanuel Online, and then you can click over to them, and then they'll know you've come from the Super On YouTube channel, and they'll sort you out with a great price as well. So let's get started. Stage 1, disconnect the battery, which if you followed the channel before, you'll know is in the boot of an RS6. Disconnect battery, check, drain aircon. Aircon, already empty. Open coolant. Check. Go back up. Wheels off. Check. Next up, front bumper off. And all naked. So you can see the ducts for the intercoolers where it scoops in. So we have to take them off and carry on getting deeper. Bagging up all the nuts and bolts as well. Keeping organised. I think we might have a bit of a leaky intercooler this side. We'll have to give that a pressure test. Got some oil coming out there. This side's all clean. So there's just some little tiny torques on the middle. This comes off. Disconnect this side horn that's on the front panel. Get that loom out of the way. And now we can get to our coolant drain. So we're going to drain the radiator from here. Here it comes. Now these are the kind of things we're worried about finding. That's the gearbox oil cooler line. It goes in there, almost rusted through, so we'll have to try and get a replacement, one of them. Other bits I've been worried about is these oil cooler lines. These are really common for shearing off and destroying the cooler, and the cooler and the lines are about £1,000, so we've got to try and save this the best we can. We've got one, we can disconnect this end, but the aluminium oil cooler and the steel fittings don't seem to want to live. And something I didn't know under here, this bolt here is an engine coolant drain. Let's see what comes out. Not a lot, apart from a load of rust. Splashing out of there. Power steering lines to disconnect and drain. We'll be renewing all that. Plug all the hoses so you're not dripping everywhere. Next are the gearbox oil cooler lines, which go into the radiator as a bit of a heat exchanger. So we'll disconnect these here. Hopefully they'll come undone. And then onto the oil cooler. Ooh. We're probably not going to drain the gearbox oil completely, so I just want to take note of how much we take out to how much we're going to put back in, because the oil is new from the rebuild. So we'll measure that out. Go for the other one. Is that it? Yes. And it's then bunged up as well, and we lost about 400 millilitres. So if we don't drain the whole thing, we know how much we've got to top up. So we've been putting it off for long enough to get these oil cooler lines off. These hold a lot of oil. Ooh. Steel on steel is alright. Lovely, that's draining nice. I've just seen on Elsewin, if the car's before 2003, it had another union here as well, so we wouldn't have to disconnect this. But after 03, they made it one piece. Thanks a lot, Audi. No, that is on there. It's just going to destroy everything if we try and take that off. So if we follow it back along the hard lines, it goes up to the oil filter housing there. So they're the hard lines that go on. So I'm hoping if I can get to them, that'll all come off as one to save the oil cooler. Well, going through that handy little gap there, we managed to get onto that top. Oh, where are you? Managed to get on that top union, and hopefully we can undo this. That's released an airlock. Lots more coming out now. So now hopefully I can fish this pipe out, save disturbing the oil cooler. Well, we've made a bit of a mess, but we've got exactly what we wanted. The pipe can now come off with the rad pack all as one. So for vehicles up to 0423, they have two oil cooler fittings where the arrows are. That would have been handy, but we are done, so let's carry on. Water pipes next, top and bottom. Aircon pipes, brackets, aircon, and then we'll go in from the top. Radiator disconnected and all released. Now I did notice at some point this has had a brand new radiator fitted, which would have required this whole rad pack to come off because it all overlaps with all these oil cooler pipes. But then I noticed that they've cut the front panel, so they've cut this little section out here so they can just fold all the oil cooler lines and the power steering lines out to get the rad out. And something I noticed earlier which didn't make sense, the top of this intercooler duct had been cut off. It should be whole like that. But now that makes sense because the oil cooler lines go through here. So instead of disconnecting the oil cooler, they just cut the shroud off. So now we are back on the top and we've got to get rid of this beautiful carbon fibre. At the back there, they're two separate air boxes and this front is just a carbon trim. Audi give you this little guide on how to get under there because that's how you check your oil. Pop them off and that reveals lots and lots of bits. So this is the mess that was all disconnected and connected up wrong. So we've got to sort that out as well. Now we need to take out the air boxes. So we've got these Jubilees here. 1, 2, 3, 4. A couple of bolts down the bottom, which you can just get to. And then the airflow meters just push in at the back. So just disconnect that one and it all lifts off together. And with them unbolted, just got to disconnect the airflow meter plugs, which is a little bit tricky. Once you get to them, it all lifts off, airflow meters and all. They stay connected to the airbox and they're just a push fit into the turbo inlets. And with the airboxes removed from the top, it just looks more like a normal V8. We've got 4 coil packs this side, 4 coil packs that side, and these are where the airflow meters go in, which are the inlets to the turbos. They just sit on those little rubbers there, little seals to go in. And they go straight into the turbos. So we'll cover them up. We don't want anything falling down there. So just like the Mark III we've been working on, we don't have to disconnect everything from the front end. They're designed to come off as one. So you don't have to disconnect each headlight, the rad fans, everything else. You just got that bunch of wires there. You leave all these connected. We've got the top rad hose to come off as well. We've got the bonnet cable that comes around. So we've just got to disconnect that. That hasn't got a quick connect like the Mark III. We've got to connect that there. And then we just disconnect those plugs. So this is where the gearbox people got it wrong the most. They disconnected the whole loom from the top of the engine. So all these individual plugs got disconnected, and now all the loom has been put on back in the wrong place. Plugs like these that went in each way were plugged in wrong. All of these ones were plugged in the wrong side. And now the loom just runs the wrong side of everything. So it's been rubbing on there, you can see, because it should go underneath. All of this should have stayed on the engine, and you disconnect it, like the Mark III conversions and everything we do, from the top. So I'm going to have to take all of this off and rerun the loom where it should be, because it is all in the wrong place, which has resulted in everything just being wrong. So we'll unplug the front panel, and then our bumper support brackets have 3 bolts each side, and that bolts the front panel to the chassis legs. So we've got to get them out. Looks like someone has been here before, because that's an odd bolt on the top there. And we've just got 2 little Torx on the top, and that should slide off as one. Ta-da! Just like at the factory. And that has revealed the front end. Now you can see why you can't really do anything with the front end on, because it's so tight and compact. We've got our boost pipes going down to our intercoolers each side. I've put some rag down our turbo intakes, because we don't want anything falling down there. So now we can get to everything else. We'll start disconnecting these boost pipes, get this front cross member boost pipe off, carry on from there. After we bag all our bolts up, staying organised. So to get the front boost pipe off, we've got 2 deep ones down in that number 1, and it's just a load of Jubilees. So Jubilee on the boost pipe, Jubilee on the blow-off valves. They're the Bailey upgraded blow-off valves there as well. Jubilee, Jubilee, and then we've got 2 deep Allen keys down these holes. These Allen keys go all the way through into the throttle body. So there's one. But whoever refitted it last time, probably when the cam belt was done, rounded off this Allen key. So thank you very much for that. So I'll probably have to drill the head off and then sort it out. And the head of the bolt drilled off perfectly. So now we've just got the stud, which should slide off. Iconic piece off. So you can see where both intercoolers join together and join at the throttle body, which is there. So there's our little bolt. We can get some pliers on that now. Carry on. Got it out. Thank you, whoever that was. Not. Next up, power steering. So we just disconnect it from the bottom of the reservoir there, and then we've got that banjo down there as well. And that'll disconnect the rack from the pump. That can sit on its own. That's them all done and hooked out the way. So next up, we've got secondary air injection. We need to get the pump disconnected and removed. We've got the purge valve. We need to get that disconnected, unplugged and removed. And then we've got to take the fuel lines off. So let's get this corner clear. Like so. Let's go to the next step. So next up, we've got heater matrix pipes to do. We've got the 2 heater matrix. Then this is the vacuum that goes to the servo there. So we'll get those 3 off. We've got to unclip the landers from that bracket and fold that in. We've got to unplug this one, which is for the secondary air injection. But that's got to stay with the loom. That should have been there, but the bracket's been broken off. And then we'll be starting to detach things from the bulkhead as well. And that's them pipes off. So we're all starting to get released and things are starting to all fold in. We've got all the landers folded in, the purge valve all folded in. But we've got this rogue wire that's going through here, which I don't think should be there, which is that red wire going into there. So I might have to snip that. That's been added in to something here. But as factory, we would be able to fold all this in now. So we'll just snip that. We'll just have to reattach that after, wherever it might go. Or find its real home and put it back where it should be. So I've just done a dirty snip on that, whatever it was for, but now that allows everything to fold up. So all the lambda sensors are going to all stay on because the exhaust is all staying on. All the sensors are staying on. We've got our exhaust gas temperatures. We'll just unbolt from the bulkhead and that'll all fold in. Then we've got our loom that goes up and around to our ECU, which is in that box there. So I'll take that cover off and all of this can then fold in. We've got to get the header tank out the way, get the water pipe disconnected, carry on folded in. Then we're going to be looking quite tidy and empty in this engine bay. everything's going to be nice and sleek. I was just about to start taking these little bolts out, looked over here, and the box isn't even closed. It looks like that one snapped off and they've just left it. So the very critical ECU, it's got an umbrella saying don't get wet, isn't even clamped shut. So we'll sort that as well. So with the header tank released, I can now get under there because I need to get to that box, which is the main power in. Because the battery is in the boot on these, they have a main power cable that comes in here, then this little fuse box here. So we need to disconnect that. That's the start motor and the alternator, which then we can fold them in. And I've just pulled this off. It was missing its bolt at the back as well, so didn't have a bolt there, didn't have the bolt there. Luckily, it doesn't look too wet. Here is our ECU. Here are all our relays for the secondary air injection and a few other bits. So this bracket pops off, the ECU will then come out, should come out with its relays as well. Then all this will lift out and the scuttle will be empty. You pop that bracket out, that releases the ECU, so you can unplug that. That red wire that we had to snip in the engine bay that was holding our loom back, I think goes in the back of this relay block. I thought this was a fuse, but after feeling it, I have a little suspicion what it is. Yeah, thought as much. It's a chocolate block. No room for that in any car, let alone an RS6. So we'll get rid of that and find what it actually runs and do it properly. No, thank you. And just like when I do all the engine conversions, we've got all our plugs in here like we have in the TT. Audi have always done it with their coloured plugs. So we'll unplug that, that'll disconnect the engine loom from the car loom, and we'll fold this out. I've just popped the covers off those fuse holders, so now you can see the massive mega 200 amp fuses there. So we've got to undo these bolts. Everything's safe because we've already disconnected the battery. But you might remember this from my RS6 where I put the charge points at the front, because otherwise you've got to go all the way to the back to get to your battery for a jump start. So that's the main power wires that go to the battery all off. I was lucky to get these bottom ones off. If you look at the fuse holder, inside it is full of rust. These plenums are common for filling up with water, but usually it doesn't matter. There's only a battery and bits, so all the terminals are up at this height. But when it fills up with water here, these fuses are submerged underwater. So it's even more important to keep these clean in an RS6. But luckily they came off a bit rusty, so I'll clean them up so we can get them out of the way. And here we are, all unplugged. So we've got all our coloured plugs, just like the Audi TT conversion I do. So maybe one day we'll be able to do a RS6 conversion. Now all of this will lift out. That's the EGTs all unbolted. Fold all them in because the turbos are staying, the loom's staying, so they can sit on the top. Got a big earth point there. Had all these earths on, disconnected them. So now we can pull this over, and this will all sit in the bay. So this is how you should disconnect it from the car, like so. But what they did is disconnected every sensor and put it that way, which left this mess because they didn't know how it went back together. So this can now sit on here. Top side, I think we're pretty much disconnected. So now we need to go back up in the air and start doing the mechanicals. All right, next up, it wants us to remove the alternator for some reason. Maybe there's a bit of clearance, but then we do have to get this water pipe out behind it. So maybe that's it. Follow the instructions. So there's the alternator. It might be a clearance problem coming out forward, but that's what it says. So follow the sequence. Make a mental note of the belt route. Click. Right, undo this tensioner and that'll come off. Got a locking pin. Drill bit. There. Off it comes. And that's opened up all that space. So what it wants next is this water pipe here out, which bolts, don't know if we can even see, a little Allen key just up there. What I think I'm going to do, even though it doesn't say it yet, I'm going to take this intercooler off. So that'll give me much more space to see in there. Intercoolers are just a few bolts both sides. Top boost pipe's off, so we'll remove this bottom one as well. That's better. Got loads of room in there now, so we can get to that bolt. Out it comes. Ta-da! And looking at the top, there's a little Jubilee in there. That's not factory. Next up, it wants anti-roll bar off. So we've got two there, two there. Next up, release engine mounts, and it says there's a little slider here up and down, which is where they're positioned, so we need to mark that so it goes back in the same place, and then we can undo the engine mounts. And I think this is why they take the alternator out, to get to the top of that one. There we are. I've marked on the notch where it came out of, and I labelled up the plugs, because I've got a couple that are the same. We've got engine mount, alternator, engine mount. Never be too proud to label up your stuff. And the other one there. So now we can undo our engine mounts. So next up underneath is going to be drive shafts and exhaust hangers there. So just undone the outer. Now got all the multi-splines inside and the covers to come off the top. And all out. Just noticed on this one we've got a split gator and that's feeling a bit rocky. So we'll probably put a new inner CV in. But got the other side out as well. Next up, says we've got to disconnect the gearbox, the gear position switch and the speed sensor, which should all be here. So the gearbox people, strike again. We've got these two plugs that plug off and that stays with the car, and then you've got that wire which goes along here, and that should have a plug here, but obviously something's happened when the gearbox has come out, so there's no plug, and that runs all the way up to the top of the gearbox. So I'm gonna have to cut this one off and rejoin it after. And then that loom will stay with the car. So I managed to get the whole loom out instead of cutting it, so that wraps all the way around the gearbox. But this loom actually runs along here, so we can get that out the way, and that'll be all the gearbox loom staying on the car side. Next up, we've got exhaust to come off, heat shields to come off, and then that's the prop shaft to come off, and then we'll be ready to come out. Exhaust off. Now get these heat shields off and covers off, and now we can get to our prop bolts. It's got this heat shield come off, all the prop bolts, and the prop will go down and will be all released. Prop shaft all off, CV covered up, so now that's all free. So the last bit we've got to do is just the gear change cable. I just took the heat shield off, and it says to mark the position because you can slide it forwards and backwards, so that's all marked. I've just popped the ball off the end of that rubber boot, so undo that one, and the gear cable should come off as well. And down, that's just a pop-on ball at the end. It's all off and released. So there's the gear cables, done that. So now we are on to starting to take off engine mounts and subframes. We're ready to come out. So it says to position a jack under the back and remove the rear subframe mounts. Now what it says is to jack it down and put a 50mm spacer to tilt the subframe down. I think, to be honest, I'm going to drop the subframe just to make things easier, get it out of the way. And then we need to get our engine crane and fish it out. So these are the rear subframe mounts. It says to take out and then space that down from the body to tilt it down. But I think we're just going to unbolt it all and take it all out. So I think we are ready to now come out. Everything is folded in. Everything is clear. Our lifting eyes are a bit awkward. One there and one there, which are right at the back for the balance, but they're just a bit awkward to get to because you've got the fuel rail right in the way and you don't want to bend that. But we'll get our engine crane connected and we're ready. So it's got the rear mounts off, just got the main bolt in the middle still to go. I'll do that when we're on the floor. It says to jack up the rear of the gearbox on this point here, not on the pan, because that will crush it in, even though you can see it's been sitting on the floor somewhere. So we'll put our jack at the back there because we have got a lot of length forward to back, so the engine crane is going to be on the front and that is going to cover it on the back. Just got to undo the gearbox mounts. See it sitting on top there, so undo them and that will release that. Even though it'll just keep sitting on it, they'll be ready to come out. Alright, rear bolts are out. Let's lower this down a little bit. Check, 50mm. Just got a last snub mount at the front to come off. We'll get that off. And then lift it up. And we're off. Now we've got to sneak the engine mounts out. Need a bit more. Still clear at the back. Alright, we've got the jack under there on that point of the gearbox that they recommended, so the jack's up. Not yet. Like I said, I think I'm going to drop the subframe down. There's nothing attached. I can get the engine mounts out of the way, and that'll allow us to slide out a bit easier. And we are out. Look at the size of that lump. What an absolute complicated whopper. You can see from the back why you have to take it out to do anything. You can't get to any of the bell housing bolts. You've got two turbos sitting on the back here. You've got the downpipes all going down, but luckily, as Audi designed it so, it all comes out as one. And really, it wasn't too bad to come out at all. There's enough room there to slide it out. I just dropped the subframe down and took the little ears off the front. That allowed me to get a little bit more room out. On the V8 C5s, the chassis legs are actually wider apart to fit the V8 in, so that definitely helps the situation. But now you can just see how absolutely massive everything is on here. We've got the exhaust manifold here, coming up, feeding in the top of the turbo, around the turbine housing, and then out the exhaust. I didn't realise that these have pre-cats as well as the sports cats on there. And then the air intake comes in from our big air boxes down the top, round, sneaks round into the compressor housing, and then down the boost pipes, and then they go forward to the intercoolers each side. All these are the water pipes and the oil pipes for the twin turbos. We've got the boost control solenoid that twins off down. You can see all the lambda sensors all stick with it and connect up into the loom, so it all does come off as one. The turbos are orientated very differently because we've got the actuator on the outside of this one with a long bar. On this one, the actuator is situated here with a short bar. We've got our exhaust temperature sensors, and they go up to the controllers, which goes to the ECU. But what a lump this thing is. And you can see quite obviously it has got a brand new gearbox in it, but let's have a look for what we actually bought it out here for. And I think it's quite clear there. You can see the exhaust manifold blowing on that corner. You can see all the black soot. There's a bit of a mismatch of bolts as well, some copper, some standard, some rounded. So we'll get the exhaust manifolds off. See, there's a bit of oil leak from the rocker cover gaskets there. There's all the secondary air injection, that all tees together. Because we've got two of everything, there is a lot of pipe work. You can see Audi have got the balance point on this pretty much spot on. We're only held up in the middle, and our clamps there cleared the fuel rail nicely. We're not even touching the fuel rail there, so that hasn't been pulling on that. And the same this side, all cleared nicely. So it came out really, really well. So it just goes to show you follow the instructions that people give you and everything works out. We've got the cam belt and everything on the front. Should just be clipped on here. And there's the cam belt, a genuine Audi cam belt as well. So it has had the nice parts fitted. As you can see, it just sits on the exhaust cams, and there's a chain under there that joins the two cams together. It's the same both sides. The cam belt only actually runs the exhaust cams. And just having a look down this side, you can see a bit of soot there where this side exhaust has been blowing also. So lucky we took it out, because as you can see, there was no chance we were going to get to that in the car. And our engine crane has been struggling a bit. We're at our 250 kilogram setting, which I think this might be a little bit over capacity, because now at the minute when we're pumping, we've got no more pump. So that's as high as we're going with this. So I think we can wrap this episode up here for now. I'm going to continue on with this build. We're going to be stripping all this down. We're going to be checking the turbos. We're going to be doing a full service, cam belt, top to bottom, sorting all the oil leaks. We're going to have all the loom off to put that all back together in the proper place and get everything back together in its factory locations. So I'm not sure how long this video has gone on. It's quite a big job. It's taken me a couple of days to get this out, but hopefully it's still been entertaining for you, seeing how Audi designed this to come out all in one piece. And I have most definitely been entertained knowing that I've got one of these sitting at home but never being able to see any of this, and I really do like this car. So make sure you tune into the next episode where we're going to be stripping all this down and we're going to see more inside it, seeing what other faults we can find and what we can rectify, and then we will be putting this back in the car and going out for a full test drive, which I am really excited about. So make sure you give this video a like. Hopefully it will be helpful for people in the future as well. Make sure you subscribe to the channel because we will be carrying on this along with all the other cars you've seen in the workshop. We've always got the camera out here, so be sure to tune in then. But until next time, make sure you have fun.